Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday night edition of Crime Talk After Dark. We've been doing this now for a couple of years, and Tuesday night is the night that we do this for about an hour or so, and then we will go to our Patreon show for all our Patreon members. And if you're not a Patreon, you can do that. You can join at many different levels, and the conversation will continue after tonight's show. And the beautiful thing is, when you become a Patreon member, you get access to the secret phone number where you can call in and we can have a conversation and talk about literally whatever you want to talk about because, well, you're a Patreon and it's your show. Just like tonight is your show as well. We will talk about whatever you want to talk about. If for some reason nobody has anything that they really want to talk about, I've got a couple of things that we can talk about for sure. Obviously, if you caught our show today, we talked about Elizabeth Holmes. Obviously, guilty on 4 counts, not guilty on several others, and then hung on 3. So that is kind of significant. In that case, we didn't cover a lot of it just because it was it went on forever and forever. I think testimony went for 7 weeks or something along those lines. It just went on forever. And when we tried talking about it, a lot of people didn't have a whole lot of interest in it, I think just because it wasn't blood and guts, so to speak, which obviously a lot of people are interested in. But interesting nonetheless, in the sense that you have Elizabeth Holmes. The people thought she was the next Steve Jobs, and, well, turns out now she's nothing more than a con artist convicted of conspiracy to commit fraud, and as well as some specific instances of fraud. I was looking at some of the comments as we were waiting to go live, and somebody said, because we did the analysis of what she was going to get, and by my analysis, she's a criminal history category 1 under the federal sentencing guidelines, and on the offense level, given the amount is $144 million. That puts her right at 151 to 188 months. Now, that's kind of the ballpark starting point, and obviously the attorneys are going to argue that there should be less time, but that's a starting point under the federal sentencing guidelines. So 151 months, was that 12 and a half years to 188 months, 12 to 14 and a half years. So, what can I say? Like I said, it's not like she was out there stealing money from little old pensioners, stealing their railroad retirement. But there were some pretty sophisticated people, some big-time hedge funds that, one could say they just didn't do their due diligence and it didn't work out. Obviously, the defense argument was, hey, we tried. We gave it our best shot. It's business. Things didn't work out. Jury said, yeah, not so much. We'll cut you a break on mostly the patients that said that they were defrauded or victims of Theranos. But the hedge funds, basically, the prosecution was able to prove that old Elizabeth Holmes lied, and she knew that material statements were material misrepresentations. And I'm sure, that's what happens anytime a business venture goes south. Somebody cries foul, there's fraud. You didn't tell me about this. If I had known this, I never would have invested money. And that's kind of always the interesting thing when it comes to fraud investor cases. Normally, most U.S. attorneys do not go after cases like this. They just simply say, sounds like a civil matter. Okay. And why did they probably go criminal? Why did they push it? Probably because everybody knew that no one's going to get their money back and they want them to go to prison. What is the number one rule in a theft case? Any attorney worth your salt is going to say, come up with the money. They want their money. They don't want you to go to prison. But if you can't come up with the money, then they're going to want you to go to prison. So come up with the money through legitimate means. Now, there's no way Elizabeth Holmes was going to be able to come up with, the hundreds of millions of dollars that she took in from investors And, that's just the way it is. That's reality of it. But any kind of a fraud, any kind of a theft case, people want their money back. And now a lot of people, we obviously talk about lots of crimes of violence in this particular case. But I think, in my humble opinion, that financial crimes can do just as much damage as, crimes of violence where people are obviously injured and harmed and permanently disfigured. And some people say, well, it's just money. But, usually there's some sort of position of trust that's involved. And it's just, people steal money and it's fraudulent. Like, people just want their money. But, if somebody said, hey, your entire life savings is gone, or what you were relying upon to run your business is gone, and you thought it was there, tell me that's not going to affect people's lives. So financial crimes, I think, oftentimes don't get the justification they deserve in the sense of as far as punishment goes. So, we'll talk about that. And then obviously we have Mark Means, who was disqualified last week, and we brought you that information regarding his disqualification. He has kept silent, but he sent out that little meme from John Adams. Basically, you should be entitled to counsel of your choice. Well, unless and if, of course, you get disqualified for a conflict of interest. So there's actually a hearing that's going to take place tomorrow in the Vallow matters regarding a protective order. Protective order is a fancy way of saying, Judge, please order somebody not to release the discovery or make public comments about this particular case. I can't imagine Mark Means would, because you would need consent of your client to do so. And since your client's not competent, or technically your old client is no longer competent or still not restored to competency, you could not gain valid consent from that. So that's where we are. Now, a couple of people commented from the video earlier today that it sounds like I am sick, and I do sound a little hoarse, a little stuffed up, but I feel okay. Last night didn't feel so great, but today I feel much, much better. In fact, last night I think I went to bed about 9 o'clock. That normally doesn't happen for sure. So, but we feel better because, hey, what was it? Not this last November, but the November before last. Is it? That's when I got COVID, knocked me out for 2 weeks. Worst 2 weeks of my life. Before that, only missed 2 days of work ever for illness. So we have to restart our streak again. I figure I've got another 20 plus years before I miss any work. So I will have to be nearly dead before I miss stuff, before I miss work. Some people think that I would be classified as a workaholic. Some people would say that. Possibly I am, but I like to keep busy. So anyway, here we are. So this is our live show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the people that have subscribed. If you haven't done so already, please do so. Share it with a friend. Just before Christmas, we went over 200,000, and it would be nice to get to, something like, I don't know, 1 million. Is that too much to ask? Let's get 1 million. Christine says here in the chats, no fever, no COVID. I have no fever. I think it's just a cold. And also, we did happen to go to Las Vegas, and other than people wearing masks, you would not know that there was any pandemic or big numbers going on because the place was, I think, 98 or 99% capacity is what the driver said from the hotel. The place was packed. Frank's working on some video from that little adventure. Hopefully it'll be up in what? Tomorrow. Yeah. Frank, the hardest working man in show business here tonight, says it'll That video will drop sometime tomorrow, showing our little adventures in Las Vegas. But since I don't, let's just say I lost. Okay, let's just say I took some not great advice from somebody on some bets related to athletics, and let's just say those were completely wrong. Okay, I will admit that I am wrong. Who in their right mind bets against Alabama? I wouldn't even know what I was thinking. He was like, oh, this guy, he follows sports. He'll know exactly what he's doing. This is going to be great. Followed his bet. And then I thought, Alabama? Who bets against Alabama? But okay, he knows what he's talking about. Well, needless to say, lost big. And then the craps tables took me down a few pegs, because the craps tables was a $100 minimum bet. So you got to pay $100 down to the pass line to bet. Then once the point is set, you got to put, insurance back there. And then to go all the way across, cover the entire board, so to speak, the table. I think that was like another almost $900 bet. So I had like $1,100 in bets at one particular time. And just bam, 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 7, 7, 7. Just like that. Gone. Made a little bit back on the blackjack tables, but let's just say Vegas got the best of me this time. But there'll always be a next time. The beautiful thing is we got to go and stay in the beautiful suite there at the Cosmopolitan Hotel, courtesy of Scott, who has the big jackpot channel. So let's just say the video, it's pretty nice suite. I would have been completely fine with a nice little king bed and, standard room. But this was pretty nice, I'm not going to lie. And that concierge service, you can't beat that at all. That's right. Let's see here. Let's take a look at the chat tonight and see what people want to talk about. Let's see. Carrie says, hey, I was in Vegas too. I had to wear a mask, and it took me 2 days to get all the crud out of my lungs when I got home. I came home, have nice bruises from stepping in a hole. Yeah. I just, everybody I knew that was there, except for the lovely Miss Kristen, had the crud by the time they came back. And I think I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's not COVID, but last time I had COVID, it was pretty bad. So I will take this so far as being pretty good, if that's what it is. I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it's just a cold. But yeah, the crud was there. But man, the place was crowded. The place was crowded. Angela, get in touch with Steve Wynn. He owns a plane too. Yeah, he owns a big one. But I don't think he's gonna change it. Didn't they change the name on the Wynn? The Wynn used to be one of my favorite hotels to stay at. The Cosmo's nice, and it used to seem like a really younger crowd, but now it seems like a little older crowd. And I think they've raised the table minimums throughout just to kind of keep the riffraff out, so to speak. And yeah. Heather, thoughts on the Summer Wells case? What's there to say? I mean, she's still missing. There's nothing. No new breaks. No one's been charged. No new leads. I know some people think, the dad or somebody had something to do with it, but if the police could prove it, they would charge. I don't know what. I mean, hunches and your gut feeling doesn't create probable cause, and it certainly doesn't create proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which is another story that I want to talk about here. This just it came out today, and people wonder why. People wonder why they lose faith in the criminal justice system. All right. So the prosecutor in the second case against Mario Cuomo here says that a top state prosecutor said on Tuesday he's dropping criminal charges accusing former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo of groping an aide after concluding the burden of proof could not be met in court. That's interesting. The Albany County District Attorney, David Soares, decisions came 3 days before the Democrat ex-governor was due to answer the misdemeanor charge before the judge. Now, this is interesting language, ladies and gentlemen. Ask yourself, if this was you, me, or a family member, do you think you would get the same privilege as a Cuomo in New York? The DA said, quote, "Well, we found the complainant in this case cooperative and credible. After review of all the available evidence, we have concluded that we cannot meet our burden at trial." That's what the DA said. The DA then went on and said he's deeply troubled by these allegations, but requested that a complaint that the sheriff filed be dismissed. Obviously, Cuomo resigned, blah, blah, blah. The Albany complaint did not name the woman, but she has been identified as Brittany, who was one of Cuomo's executive assistants at the governor's mansion. Cuomo had no control over Brittany had no control over the filing or the prosecution of criminal charges. She has no authority or voice in those decisions. I would tend to disagree with that. Usually under the Victims' Rights Act in most states, the prosecution has to consult with the victim. And it says her only resolution then is to continue to speak the truth and I guess go through a civil matter. And she said that she alleged, this Brittany, that Cuomo, ex-Governor Cuomo, slid his hand up her blouse and grabbed her breasts while they were alone at their office at the governor's mansion in Albany in late 2020. So correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Because I have clients that have allegations just like that, except they don't have ex-governor or the last name of Cuomo as their last name. And if you had made that allegation, I would guarantee you 99.9% of prosecutors would take that case. You have a cooperative victim, and the DA finds the victim credible. There's no history of mental illness, previous false allegations, which oftentimes there are issues against the complaining witness in this particular case. There does not appear to be. She appears to be credible in the sense that she was capable enough to be hired as an executive assistant to the governor. They don't let just anybody in there to do that. Or maybe Cuomo did. I don't know. But the reality of it is, obviously, we'll give him the presumption of innocence, and the charges are being dismissed. But think about this, ladies and gentlemen. If that were you, me, friend of yours, family friend, family member, do you think with that information your charges would be dismissed? Highly, highly unlikely. And this is why the citizens lose faith in the judicial system, is when people in power, usually elected people in power, and let's face it, the Cuomo family gets about as close as you can to, what's the word I'm looking for without getting sued? Lots and lots of power in New York, even though it seems to be crumbling just a little bit, just saying that. But I'm sure there's lots of favors that still need to be pulled in. He is still a Cuomo after all. But I'm telling you, I think if I was the victim in that particular case, I would say, I would like you to articulate on the record as to which element that you do not believe that you could prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? This is what is referred to as a cold sexual assault, right? It's not like it's something that just happened moments ago, but she came forward and said this happened. She was working. They can corroborate that she was working during that time, usually through time records, phone records, what have you. They can probably corroborate that the governor was there based upon his schedule. She makes an allegation that he reached under her blouse without consent and touched her breast. Usually there has to be some element of some sort of sexual gratification. That can also be inferred, right? Most people don't go around grabbing other ladies' breasts unless there's some sort of sexual gratification to be had there. So that can be inferred from that conduct. And so what element is there that the governor doesn't think that they can prove? It's a swearing contest in a cold case. I mean, basically, why don't they just say, we don't find her credible, and this guy, he has lots of still power and friends, and it can make my life as a prosecutor and his political dreams and goals go away if, he continues with his prosecution. At least have the guts to just say that versus saying they don't think they can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, because I just have to sit here and wonder and think, what element do they think that is that, what element don't they think they can prove? I think they can prove that. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know. Let's see here. We have a super chat from Janet. Is MM, referring to Mark Means, fighting getting disqualified? I heard he was fighting back. The only thing that I have seen was a meme that he put up on Twitter, basically saying, it was a quote by John Adams, which says basically to the effect of, no one should ever have to hire counsel, or it's a scary, terrible thing to have a hire counsel, but you should be able to have the counsel of your choice. Referring to, he still thinks that Lori Vallow wants to have him as his attorney. So we'll see. I haven't heard, but if there's one thing that Mark Means will do, I'm sure he is not going to go away quietly. Bottom line, he's like a bull in a china closet. I can't imagine that Mark Means is just going to go away quietly. Who knows? Maybe we could even get him on the show. I've talked with the guy. I would say, hey, let's face it. You don't have any experience in criminal defense work. Why do you think that this would be a good case for you to cut your teeth on, basically a death penalty case? I think those would be fair questions. I don't want to ask, why do you, have this kind of weird desire to oversee your client's restoration? Once again, a little weird. Something you just don't see every day. I assure you of that. I mean, obviously, I've had clients who've been concerned when they go there, but I've never got that involved in it. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I'm an attorney. I'm not a professional. And we've talked about this before. I think we're not going to see Lori Vallow restored to competency anytime soon. I have nothing to base that on other than just what I've seen and what I've seen in my own private practice in regards to people that suffer from these deeply held delusional beliefs that they have. So, Chloe's mom, Carrie Power. I have innocent men sitting in jail for 34 years for the crime they didn't commit. I'm sickened by this country. Let's just see here. I'm sorry, which one are they referring to? Said he feels like motions means disqualification is revenge from Rob Wood. I don't know if it's revenge, but I think Rob Wood does not particularly like nor respect Mark Means. I mean, he basically made allegations against him saying that he was tampering and intimidating witnesses early on in this particular case. Now, most attorneys, I think, operate above board. And I've mentioned this before. You don't go around, start throwing the E word around, basically saying somebody is unethical, unless you can prove it. Okay? And when I read the allegations that Mark Means was making early on regarding Mark Wood, there's a transcript, an audio recording of when he was interviewing witnesses in the case. And he was basically kind of laying out, this is what's going on, because these are some of they're related, they're family members. And he's acknowledging, saying, I understand it's a hard situation. You're friends with, Lori, but, their family, but also the children. You want to make sure that justice is done for them. So he's, trying to say, I understand the hard situation you're in. And Rob Wood makes a statement in there at one point regarding, when the guy, he's never done a criminal case, and all he does is basically badmouth me. And he says if he got around to doing that, maybe he could get some legal work done. So Do I think that Rob Wood does not care for Mark Means? Yes. Do I think that Rob Wood has little to no respect for Mark Means? I would venture to guess yes. Do I think that Mark Means was very unhappy that he was disqualified? Yes, I do. Do I think that he will try to do something to sabotage the case for, I don't know, but you never know what he will do. And do I think the prosecution and even the court was happy to get rid of Mark Means? Now, this is speculation. We don't like to speculate, but I think the answer is yes. I think they had enough of his over-the-top litigious style that was really detrimental to his client. It really did him no good whatsoever in the representation of his client, and it made him look rather silly most of the time. So, Tim, what makes a great criminal defense attorney? Lack of ex-clients on death row. That's all. It doesn't hurt, I guess. Personally, I think what makes a great criminal defense attorney is, one, I think you have to absolutely love the old Constitution, right? You have to love the Constitution. And you have to understand that you are protecting everyone's rights, even though you're doing it by sometimes having to represent a really bad guy or woman, okay? That's just the way it is. You know, most attorneys do not go out there and say, I respect what my client did, in that mass whatever, right? They don't do that, but they're protecting their rights. And it's been said, there's a great quote that says, if you let the government railroad a guilty man, they will start doing it to innocent men and women as well. And I do truly believe that. And the greatest defenders of your constitutional rights on a daily basis, ladies and gentlemen, that's right, little old street lawyers like me and the tens of thousands of criminal defense attorneys across the country, right? Where else can the power of the government be brought and used and abused so quickly against individuals? Well, in the criminal justice system, right? Sure, they can harass you with, governmental things saying, oh, you committed this, your lawn's too high or whatever. But you can also be accused of crimes you didn't commit, or you can be retaliated against crimes that you didn't commit. And that is ripe for abuse in the criminal justice system. And so, even though you may not necessarily like your client, you may actually despise your client. But the criminal defense attorney is the one that stands up in court and says, hey, you can't do this, right? And if the judge goes along with it and says, oh, yeah, what they did was fine, no big deal, no harm, no foul, your guy's guilty, then it's that little criminal defense attorney that prepares that appellate paperwork up, sends it up to the Court of Appeals. Sometimes appellate counsel does it, and they appeal that case, okay? Think about it. All of the major constitutional law questions, right, that have gone to the United States Supreme Court all started because some little street lawyer, whether they're privately retained or appointed by the court, was told, you have a client, or said, you have a client now. And they said, hey, government, you can't do that. What the government is doing is exceeding their constitutional authority, and that isn't right. And sometimes the government will say, you're right. Excuse me, little under the weather. And sometimes the government will say they're right, but usually they won't. Usually what the government says was, don't really care. Don't really care. Because we think this judge is basically on our side. He's going to do whatever he wants. He's never granted a motion to suppress. Frankly, he's never granted a motion favorable to the defense. And so what are the chances that he's going to do it for you? And you're right. And you say, okay, you're right. But guess what? we're still going to go forward with that motions hearing because I think I'm right and I think the judge is wrong and you're wrong. Okay? I've had cases where I have litigated it, and I swear to God, I have a case. I think I spent my entire day in court objecting to questions asked by the prosecutor, objecting to their experts that they didn't endorse, opinions that they didn't endorse. And the DA just poo-pooed me. The judge poo-pooed me. Mr. Reich, I will give you a standing objection. Oh, no, Your Honor. Oh, no, I'm not going down that little route. I'm going to object to each and every question that the prosecutor is going to ask, okay? I am going to do that. And I objected. And everybody got tired of me objecting. I got tired of objecting. It goes up on appeal. And I didn't do the appeal, but the appellate people did the appeal. And they say that, Scott was right. He objected. He preserved the record. And you know what the prosecution did in that appeal? They said, well, there was this one question that he didn't object to. Apparently I was getting a glass of water because my mouth was so parched from objecting and I didn't get it out quick enough or something. And they said, so he must have waived it. Swear to God, ladies and gentlemen, that's what their argument was. Now, fortunately, the Court of Appeals in that particular case said, oh no, he objected. We could count all the objections if we had to, but we're not going to because he objected and objected and objected and objected. And guess what? They reversed the case and they said, the DA, you were wrong with all of your questions. Judge, you were wrong in allowing in the witnesses, the testimony, and their opinions that were expert opinions that weren't endorsed properly. So guess what? New trial, right? All because somebody said, I object. I could have been intimidated by the government saying, well, it's the people of the state of Colorado, the judge, I got all these jurors over here and they're probably tired of me. But I have a duty to my client to protect him and to protect his or her constitutional rights. And I will stay there all day long objecting if that's what is required. Okay? Due process is not about speed. Due process is making sure we do it correctly. And a lot of people don't like that. But you know what? The people that don't like it are usually the ones that eventually have to come and hire me or one of my contemporaries and say, my little Johnny or little Jane has been charged with a crime. What can you do? He or she is such a good kid. He's never done anything wrong. I'm not one of those bad people. Oh, okay. Your kid is accused of doing a bad thing, right? Suddenly those people that think that everyone should be strung up from the highest tree because they've been accused of doing something wrong, that they need super due process for their kid, okay? Or whether it's their friend. The bottom line is you have to let the process work. We've had a lot of trials lately, right? We had the Ahmaud Arbery trial. That thing was delayed, because of COVID. The jury decided guilty on just about every count, I think, except for one or two for that Roddy Williams. It's called due process, right? You had the Rittenhouse case. You had the Kim Potter case. The jury ruled. They decided this is it. I think there's some legal issues in there. We'll have to see. And then you get the whole case here that we had with a 110-year sentence for the trucker, right? DA says, I think the case is worth 20 to 30 years. The guy says, no, let's go to trial, knowing full well that if you lose, you're going to get 110 years minimum, right? I think that's a crazy sentence. Only one person to blame in that particular case as it relates to the sentence, and that was the district attorney. They overcharged it, okay? Completely overcharged it. But this is a tactic that district attorneys and United States attorneys do throughout the country. It's nothing new. If you want to exercise your constitutional rights, Then all of a sudden the district attorney's like, oh, I'm going to go find some stuff and add some charges. That's what they do to force people into taking plea bargains. Right, wrong, I don't know. But then it makes the defendant who says, but you're accusing me of this and now you're adding on these other charges that are now mandatory prison when everybody knows or thinks that this case was an accident in general. It's not like he charged down there and said, I want to inflict death or serious bodily injury on all of these individuals. Don't think he wanted to do that. Really don't. Maybe it's reckless. Worth 110 years? I don't think so. Think if that was your kid, your family member, right? You'd want to say, hey, maybe you did something wrong, but maybe 110 years isn't exactly doing justice. Which brings us to a bigger problem, right? The legislature. And I mean this with all due respect, but most legislators, not that smart, okay? They're not. And I know several of them. I've smoked cigars. I like them as individuals. But I don't necessarily think that they're great legislators, okay? In fact, of probably most, if not all of the legislators that I've ever met, I don't think a single one has really impressed me. And I thought, wow, that individual seems like a great person, right? They really want to do the right thing. Yeah, no, they don't. And so then you have them, they write terrible laws. There was a case in Georgia. I'm going to see if I can pull it up. I was speaking to the lovely Miss Kristen about it. And it was a death penalty case in Georgia that's going to the United States Supreme Court. And in that particular case, the issue is the law that the Georgia legislature passed. And the law basically said that if you were to present a mental impairment defense, like, you know, you're mentally handicapped so that you could not be put to death, it's upon the defendant to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, normally once that's raised, you have to show a preponderance of the evidence, and the government is the one that has to disprove that. But Georgia thought they were going to be cute and say, we're going to show them. We're not going to have any of these mental impairment defenses because they delay due process. We need to make sure we get away with this. And so they passed it. And this article was talking to the legislator that wrote it. And remember, this went to like first, second, third reading in the House, the Senate, then went and got signed by the governor. And the guy that wrote it, you know what he said? Well, yeah, that language, I mean, you really shouldn't ignore. We didn't mean to put that in there. Bygones. And I was talking to lovely Miss Kristen about this, like, can you believe this? And I was talking to another attorney here in the office today about that case. And I was like, can you believe this? The legislature passed this stuff, apparently didn't read it, but thinks it sounds really good. It goes through the whole process, and nobody says, hey, you know what, we're going to be the only state that's doing this, and goes completely against, you know, the current law as it relates to death penalty jurisprudence. Hell, well, let's just go for it, right? Hopefully the Supreme Court strikes it down. Hopefully they would put a little footnote in there, or, you know, even better, not even a footnote, and just say, hey, legislators, get your act together. Like, you have to read this stuff because words matter. And we as courts are supposed to interpret the words as written in their plain meaning, giving them their plain meaning and effect. And when you write this stuff and you screw it up because you don't care, you think you're being cute, guess what? And we have to reverse that and throw that out. You've just completely done away with your goal that you thought you were going to try to do, right? What people don't get in the adversarial system, in our litigation system, is the truth is going to come out, or a pretty darn close version of it. Okay? Prosecutor's going to make an allegation. Defense is going to say, yeah, that didn't happen, or maybe it happened a little bit, but more like this. and you have to let the jury decide. But when you totally stack the deck where you can't present anything, I don't know. It's wrong. And the reason I do that was because the 110-year trucker, the governor gave him clemency. Now, the governor, normally his clemency rules is you have to serve at least a third of your sentence before you're eligible for clemency. But apparently that doesn't matter when it's a high-profile case. And what's the word I'm looking for? Kim Kardashian calls you. I guess you better take that call. And I truly believe this, and you can mark my word, okay? Jared Polis will run to be president of the United States. And he may just win. He is a very smart guy. He's probably one of the smartest politicians here in the state of Colorado. And I used to think the guy would never be able to get elected outside of Boulder, which was his little home enclave when he was in Congress. But he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, so he can write a blank check. And basically, his position is, I'm going to do what I think is right and screw everybody else. I don't need you all because I've got hundreds of millions of dollars, which frankly, I like that independence, whereas most other people in government, they don't make any money, so therefore they're always looking for a way to get a few extra bucks. And if they're not concerned about that, then they're only looking for power, which should scare the hell out of everybody. Okay? Just saying, completely my thoughts. But he did it anyway. He reduced the sentence to 10 years. But that's the power of, clemency that each governor in the state has. They can pardon people. They can reduce sentences. It's been set up that way from the beginning. And, even the president can do it on federal matters. You just don't normally see it go through the system. But the people to hold accountable for the trucker case, the district attorneys. It's the typical crap the DAs do. They overcharge the case. You know what? If they thought that case was worth 20 to 30 years, then they should have put in there, the vehicular homicide, vehicular assault, kept it at that. Them adding crimes of violence, that's totally on them. Frankly, and I hate to throw out the E word, but you're getting real close to, unethical, in my opinion. Because there's an interesting case, and it makes sense, right? The legislature passes laws. So they say, hey, if, let's say, for example, you're drunk, they have a crime of vehicular assault. You hit somebody, they're drunk, you break a bone, then they get a felony charge, vehicular assault. Well, you could also charge, in theory, and this is kind of what they did in this case, although the trucker wasn't drunk, they charged a first-degree assault or second-degree assault, saying that you intentionally or recklessly harm them with a deadly weapon and you cause serious bodily injury. Well, that's not really the intent of the law. That's usually like if you take a hammer and you crack it over somebody's head. You intended to do that. Deadly weapon, serious bodily injury, crack their head. Now, if you're sitting at a stoplight and there's case law out there, this is a very example, where the guy's charged with vehicular assault because he was drunk, as well as first-degree assault. He's sitting there, he's drunk, he's in a stoplight, and the guy walking across the street gets into words with him, and they start yelling at each other. The guy puts his, takes a foot off the brake, hits the gas pedal, drives the guy over because he's upset at what he said about his mom or something along those lines, and runs over with the car, and he just happened to be drunk. That car was used as a deadly weapon. He intended to do that, right? That's what the law is supposed to do. You have to prove the mental state of a defendant. You have to be able to show that there was their conscious knowledge, that they knew what they were doing, aware of their conduct, and they meant to cause the action to take place. Okay? And that's the problem, like I said, when you get into negligence, because you're no longer getting into what reasonable people, or you start getting away from what the government has to prove is one's mental state. Knowingly, right? He knew what he was doing. He was going to harm somebody, versus negligence, which is a reasonable person standard. And Judge Gorsuch on the United States Supreme Court, before he became a Supreme Court justice on the 10th Circuit, said he has a real problem with a negligence standard in a court system, right? because we prosecute people on crimes of what they intended to do, not based upon what everyone thinks they should have done, looking back with hindsight and 2020 vision. Okay, so got a real problem with that. All right, let's go on. Sorry, just gets me a little fired up there. Stupid laws written by people that aren't that much smarter than the law itself creates problems, right? Legislators should be skeptical of taking legislation directly from the district attorney's council, which is usually like a lobbying group of all the DAs in the state, just as they would from taking every word from the criminal defense bar lobbying group in every state to change it. Take it with a grain of salt. I got an idea. Maybe use your own judgment. And don't just go with the side that has the better cocktail party and the better booze when you're being wined and dined for your vote. But hey, that's just me. I'm just cynical. Maybe old Governor Cuomo just set me off tonight. I don't know. All right. Let's see here. Sandra, too much politics and grandstanding by DAs. Just look to their next election battle. It serves no one except themselves. DAs are individuals, particularly ones that want to be an elected DA. And a lot of DAs will tell you, privately, that they have much greater political aspirations. What's the better way to do it, right? Great politician, somebody's got military experience. Let's send them out to be a prosecutor as well. A little military, little prosecutor, law and order. Bam, they're like your perfect candidate. They have higher political aspirations. I don't know, but they just need to do their job. And the problem with a lot of legislators, most of them now are in session like the whole year. Colorado is in session for 120 days. And that's still too much time for them to screw stuff up, right? The government that governs least governs best, because something happens and, they have to do a knee-jerk reaction and they'll overreact. For example, we had these terrible fires. I think they're investigating. I think they've narrowed it down as to where it may have started, but nearly 1,000 people lost their homes. I know people that have been affected by that. My heart goes out to them. That's just absolutely terrible. I couldn't imagine. Can you imagine if you were given the word, you've got 15 minutes, get out? What would you grab? Seriously, you got 15 minutes, grab whatever you need, just go. But they'll probably come in, the legislator will come in and they will come up with a law that says that, no fire can be burned if their winds are over certain. They'll come up with something crazy to show that they look like they're doing something and that they care more than the next guy. Maybe they'll come in and they'll do away with mandatory minimum sentences. I'm okay with that. Hell, we have some of the dumbest mandatory minimum sentences. Let me tell you where we have the dumbest mandatory minimum sentences are. DUI laws, right? It used to be the judges could tell what was the appropriate sentence. Okay, I really do believe this. And then the newspaper, the Denver Post, did an article, said there was a disparity in sentencing. One jurisdiction, they were hammering everybody, let's say on a second or third lifetime. Other people were getting probation. Well, if you say, okay, guy was 55 years old and had a DUI, it was a third in a lifetime, but the other two were back when he was 18, so 30 years ago. And they were back to back when he was in college or something along those lines, and the guy made a mistake. 30 years later, go that far back on something like that. But our legislature says, yep, you have 3 in a lifetime. Regardless of how far they're spread out, you've got to do 60 days jail. Bam, just like that. Stupid. On a second, you got to get 10 days. You think, oh, it's 10 days, but you can't get work release. So what are you going to do? Lose your job? It's silly. Just impose a maximum sentence, right? And And there should be no, in my humble opinion, there should be no punishment, that the conviction of itself can be punishment alone. We used to have that in the military. In the military, the jury members decided the punishment. They were told this is what the punishment was. So they could say the punishment is up to life in prison, or, it's 20 years. And the judge says you can consider the maximum penalty, something in between, or no punishment, because the conviction of it in and of itself can be punishment enough, because it usually meant you were going to get kicked out of the military. But the jury knew what the consequences were. Who's better to decide what the appropriate punishment is than the people that have to live in that community, right? But all right, well, I guess Scott got on a little bit of a tangent tonight, but like I said, maybe a little Cuomo thing got me all fired up. Jennifer, pay attention and vote. Kat, yeah, and don't get me wrong, and let's face it, if a judge said, hey, you got a guy that's been involved in an accident, a bunch of people died, I think the judge is going to be able to come up with the appropriate sentence. You don't have to say, Judge, we don't trust you enough to do the appropriate thing, so therefore you have to get this mandatory minimum sentence. And like I said, mandatory minimum sentences are great unless and until it's you, right, or your family member that is charged, and then all of a sudden it's not so big of a deal. Alex, unpopular opinion, the biggest syndicates of organized crime profiting from crime are the bar associations themselves. Well, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by the bar associations, because usually the bar associations are the ones that are supposed to be self-regulating. But there are certain bars, like you have like the trial lawyers, you have the criminal defense lawyers, you have the insurance defense lawyers, you have the family law lawyers, and they certainly make recommendations, but it depends on who's going to do that. So not exactly sure what you mean by that, Alex, but if you want to clarify, let me know. Let's see here. Look at come on more of these. Let's see here. I think the third 60 days is fine. I don't care. The first two were 30 years ago. And that's your opinion, and I got to look out for my clients as well. I enjoy intelligent conversation, blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. But we'll join. I don't know if anything useful to add. Oh, on Texas time, of course you do. Everybody has something to add. What do you think of the New World Order? I don't know. We don't mind the rant, Scott. We're learning. I missed the Cuomo thing. Yeah, they dismissed the charges, and I would ask the DA if I could, Mr. DA, man, what element do you think you could not prove where the former executive secretary to Mario Cuomo said that when they were there working late at night or after hours, that he put his hand up her blouse and touched her breast? Why would that not be some sort of unlawful sexual contact crime? I would just want to know. When you say the victim is credible and cooperative, that's a question of fact for the jury to decide. I'm not sure why the district attorney is saying he can't prove the case. Basically, I guess he should just say is, although she's credible, we think she's a liar. I mean, I just don't know what he thinks he cannot prove, and that would be the decision for the jury to decide. Just Angelina, yeah. Simply California fires. We dealt with that in California. Always had a bag packed and ready to evacuate something. Such thick smoke in the air. It was horrible. I wasn't here Thursday, but people said at the office it literally looked like it had snowed because of all the ash that was on the cars. Is what Matt was saying. Let's see. Lula Scott. Even if the DA overcharged, wouldn't the jury find him not guilty on such charges? Not necessarily. A jury can be pretty persuaded, the emotion of everything going on in court. You start looking at pictures as a jury member of a bunch of charred bodies. You can get pretty emotional. You got the family sitting in the courtroom and you just looked at photos of their autopsy of charred bodies. That can be pretty impactful. Juries usually get it right. I didn't say the jury got it wrong. I just thought the charges were overcharged. They could have easily charged what they did in fact charge, which was the, vehicular assault, criminally negligent homicide, all of those charges. But they tacked on all these crimes of violence for every case that they could. And, I think they completely overcharged it. So just my humble opinion. Cat, he was paid off in money or power, something. I think there's just too many people that owe favors, and he knew his political career would probably be gone if he didn't help out the now ex-governor. Melissa, so many people moved to Phoenix from California because of the fires. We have some friends that they lost everything in their... Scott, that sounds like inside political backdoor action again, as it relates to Cuomo. Isn't he at liberty to say why? I agree, Jason. He should absolutely say why. CG, I am tired of allegations from 20 years ago. If it wasn't reported at the time of the crime, no crime. There cannot be an investigation at that point. Only a he said, she said situation. And that goes to the weight of the evidence. A lot of legislatures have passed laws, particularly as it relates to, say, for example, sexual assault allegations, where there is no statute of limitations whatsoever. It usually, on most cases, it's 3 to 5 years, with the exception, obviously, of homicides and things of that nature. But now they throw, sex assault allegations in, so 20, 30, 40. In fact, they change it now. Don't talk about the bar getting involved, where they changed, allegations of sexual assault. Why? That was all for the church litigation that went on years and years ago, where somebody said they were sexually assaulted by a priest. Now, obviously, priests shouldn't do that, but we talked about, why are they there? Well, that's where all the children are, right? Just saying. And I was raised Catholic, so I'm just telling you. But it's the kind of thing that I think it's a constitutional due process violation. And I think it can occur much longer than that, because when I say due process, the defense has a constitutional right to be able to present a defense. And if the prosecution holds off, or the victim holds off on filing a case, it affects the defense's ability to find witnesses, right? You would think if a crime is charged, you want things that are fresh in people's mind. You want to be able to find witnesses. I had a homicide case. It was a cold case. It was a homicide, so I get it. A couple of dead bodies, pretty bad stuff. But it was literally 20 years later. And, the client said, you need to go find dude. Where am I going to find dude? Well, dude is, used to hang out in this corner, right? So you send investigators out to go look for dude, and everyone's like, oh, I knew a dude, but maybe not that dude, but could be another dude. But that dude always wore blue, so it couldn't have been that dude. You're looking for a dude that always wore red. Oh, yeah, that's the dude. Yeah, I know that dude. Remember where? Oh, yeah, he's dead, right? So that's just kind of a way of an example. Like I said, it's great, I guess, if, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but at a certain point in time, I think generally there needs to be statute of limitations. Obviously, murder, I think it's always been, or pretty much nearly always been, there is no statute of limitations. Forgery, that's a charge that usually has no statute of limitations, because it can be concealed for so long. Somebody forges documents, say to buy and sell and transfer a home, something along those lines. So they need that, but it affects the defense just as much, if you're not worse, because you have somebody saying, I'm making an allegation against defendant A. It was 20 years ago. Okay, how does the defendant even know what day that was? How do you go back and try to figure that out? It's just fundamental fairness. At a certain point in life, it's just not fair at a certain point to say, well, 40 years ago, this happened, and now I'm coming forward with it. And, you should go spend the rest of your life in prison. Well, 40 years ago, like all of my friends that would have been around if you brought this in 5 years would have still been alive. They would be there, be fresh in their memory. So I have a little problem with that as well there, CG. Suzanne Schultz, do you ever say no to a case? It depends. Usually, if we don't take a case, either one, there'd be an ethical conflict, obviously. Can't take a case, there's an ethical conflict. Two, if client can't pay, sorry, but we don't do this stuff for free because all we have is our knowledge and our time, and that costs money. And that's all my knowledge and experience learned over 27 years. It's not like, you can go hire a guy right out of law school and he may do a wonderful job for you. But my guess is I may know just a little bit more than him at the end of the day. And, and I'm talking about stuff you can't read in the book. It's trial stuff, how to work things, so to speak. And then third, there's always they have money, but your spidey senses are tingling and your spidey senses say, don't take this case. No matter how much they are willing to pay, it's not going to be worth it, okay? Younger in my career, I would take those cases. Now it's like, you know what? We have plenty of work. More work will come in the door. I do not need to take cases where my spidey senses are tingling saying client is crazy, okay? Just don't need to do that. So hopefully, Suzanne, that answers your question. They should be definitely not be a statute of limitations. Well, that's usually where the state comes in, Melissa, as it relates to children. And I agree. And, this stuff's been going on. I mean, this stuff goes on forever, and everyone acts like it's always new stuff, man. This stuff's been going on for centuries, and everybody acts like it doesn't happen. And I'm telling you, I've seen it affect people. I do, and I have. But what it comes down to is fundamental fairness, okay? And I tell you, you bring a case where somebody's made an allegation that's 20 years old, I assure you, I am going to cross-examine you on, let's talk about how many people you could have had contact with. Oh, did you have best friends? Did you tell them? Nope. Did you tell a teacher? Nope. Did you tell any family member? Nope. Did you tell a coworker you became good friends with? How about your college roommates? I'm going to go through a list of every person you said that, and you didn't do it. So the longer it goes and the less likely you told people about it, juries, in my experience, usually tend not to believe those allegations because I think jurors usually say it's just fundamental fairness that something like that takes place. And I get it. It can be traumatic. There can be fear involved. I'm not saying this stuff doesn't happen, but everybody has a right to equal justice and due process, regardless of the crime. That's all we're saying. Is there a super chat that I missed? Did I miss one? Oh, sometimes they sneak by here, and that's the whole purpose of them. Scott, can Lori keep firing attorneys to waste time? Audrey Jensen. Well, remember, it wasn't Lori Vallow that fired Mark Means. It was the court that fired Mark Means based upon the motion filed by the prosecution saying that, one, he is basically revealing attorney-client privileges, and we're not sure that he's basically qualified to proceed. And I've got the order here. We went through it on a show, 2 weeks ago, live. And I'm telling you, oh my God, If I got this order and it was published for the world to see, I would just quit practicing law. I would go work at Starbucks. The court said, Mr. Means' practice of submitting declarations under penalty of perjury have called into question his ability to competently and effectively represent Vallow going forward, despite the pending stay in this case. The court called you not competent as an attorney. Oh my God. If I was Mark Means, I would just simply, don't go away mad, just go away. Okay? And hope that, people will forget about you, that you ever did this case ever again. Remember, it wasn't Lori Vallow that fired Mark Means. It was the court that fired Mark Means and said there was a conflict because he had stated that he represented Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, a non-waivable conflict given the fact that it was a death penalty case. And he's on the record. We have that. Do we have that queued up, Frank? Hold on. This is classic, okay? And we did videos when this first came out. Okay, you got it? Play it.
The amount of resources that can be saved in order to allow that to happen, and given that I represent her husband, Chad Daybell, in the event that there's an issue there.
Mr. Means, have you ever represented any of the alleged co-conspirators that are set forth in the criminal complaint?
No, Your Honor, other than Mrs. Daybell.
Yep. There it is. There it is. Right? Lack of candor to the court. And that was in the county court, but they figured the maximum penalty was only 5 years at that point. No big deal. It's not like they're going to have a death penalty case or anything. So the court said, not a big deal. So yeah. What else can I say? What else can I possibly say? Mark Means, the court basically said, one, there's a conflict, and he was worried about your ability to effectively and competently represent your client. You might as well just mail in the bar certificate. I would just disappear. I would bury my head in the sand and agree never to practice law. It's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. JPL. I'm sorry, but the prosecution's going to have a problem with Mr. Means. I can't disagree. I'm not sure he's going to go away, but he probably should. And Simply Susan, yeah, I mean, sorry about that, your daughter, but I mean, that's the statute of limitations, and obviously the legislature does that, and probably 3 years is too short, but a lifetime is too long. There needs to be something a little more reasonable in there, in my humble opinion. Rebecca, you would think that a normal person would see that order and learn from it. Mark Means, I'm not sure he's able to do self-reflection, sadly. Stephanie, okay. Oh my God, Scott, I almost peed myself. Good one. Looks like I missed a super chat. Let me go back up here. Sorry, Audrey, sorry. Try to get all the super chats. Want to read all the super chats. I just got to find it. A lot of comments here. Let's see here. I meant now with new attorneys, will she? I don't know if she'll be able to fire them. Let's see here. I want to make it so I can see all chats. Let's see. I think that'll do it. Do you think the civil case against Prince Andrew will be dismissed now that the settlement with the victim and Epstein has been revealed? Well, we haven't really talked about that, but I read that settlement agreement that Jeffrey Epstein did, that guy named Jeff, with Miss Jeffrey, and it was to pay her $500,000, And there's this vague language in there, basically said, or anybody else who may have done anything. This is a blanket settlement as it relates to everybody. My position would be, hey, the attorneys should probably list those people who are part of the settlement agreement so that it's absolutely clear. The fact of not putting their names in there to protect them may potentially screw them because it's not actually in there. But once again, I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell, the jury has found her guilty. And I'm not saying she's innocent in any way. I think she probably knew that her boss was a freak. She tried to help him out, and maybe she got a little weirded out by his freakiness. And she figured, hey, the only way I can get away from that is if I get somebody else to replace him. I don't know everything that went down there. But the reality of it is that, not good. Sarah, can you just repost it, Stephanie? Stephanie, if you retype it, you don't have to do a super chat. I will look for it here right now. A. Williams, are you feeling well, Scott? I just got a little bit of a head cold here. I think it was the trip to Las Vegas. But we're gonna put some video up, so hopefully you all like that tomorrow. Stephanie, has anyone speculated on what Lori Vallow could be diagnosed with? I could speculate. I think it's some sort of delusional order, and I'm sure I'm not using the right terms, but it sounds like she's totally delusional, in my humble opinion, where she just has no grasp of reality and thinks that the bad demons are coming for her and the end of the world is coming and that she is this goddess, and she probably believes that, and not just faking it. She probably truly believes it. And the only reason I tend to think that is I've had cases like that where people looked relatively normal, but they were absolutely delusional. You could have a little bit of a conversation to them, but everything came back to the weirdness. And you couldn't have a real conversation with them. You could spend hours with them and you just think, my God, that's 2 hours of my life that I will never get back. And I'm not even sure what the hell happened or what was said there the entire time. So I think it's some sort of delusional thing, but I'm not a doctor, so don't listen to me on that. All right. Okay, Jewel of Thought, maybe diagnosed brief psychotic disorder, dissociative identity disorder. Yeah, see, Jewels of Thought has much better idea things can be diagnosed with. You just kind of have to wait and see what the experts say. But I'm telling you, I've said this before, those people at the state hospital, they're pretty smart. They are used to flushing out, distinguishing malingerers, people faking it, versus those that are truly crazy, okay? And you know crazy when you see crazy. And I don't mean to offend anybody when I say crazy, but you know what I'm saying. You know it when you see it. So, yeah. Let's see. Oh, my God, that was crazy. What kind of moron thinks they can spend all that money on suits, luggage, greedy ass? That was great. Best attorney west of Mississippi. Attorney lied to the court, and the only thing that happens is he gets booted from defending his client. Well, Ruby, Red Lopez, 4-18. I would think that there's possibility that maybe somebody would have sent something off to the bar. Yep. Stephanie, yes. Thank you to all our moderators. I totally agree. I'm sorry I missed your super chat, Stephanie. I apologize. They go by so fast, and sometimes it freezes. I don't know. If I could crack the code on this stuff, it'd be so much easier. Jewels of Thought, what's the test for malingering? Basically, they figure it out where the professionals think they're faking it. Remember, when they're at the state hospital, they're monitored literally kind of, when I say 24/7, not every moment, but a lot of the day. And you can't fake crazy all the time. You're going to come out of it, and they're going to catch it. So, yeah. Then you got to move on and be fine with it because the proper investigation cannot be done. My son seems normal until you spend time with him and he starts talking about his delusions, Kat. Yeah, that's it's really weird. And I didn't say really weird, but it's sad, and it's usually not their doing, but there's usually some sort of paranoia that goes with it. And like I said, I'm not a doctor, but I've seen several cases like this where it's just like they just think that the whole world kind of is out to get them. They're doing this, and they connect the dots, and well, on this date they did this, and you know what that means, don't you? And you're like, well, no. Well, it's obvious that they did this, and then this happened, and they kind of weave it all together, and it makes sense to them, but everybody else is sitting there scratching their head saying, what the hell's going on? And they believe it, right? And they look normal. Like I said, you always think of the crazy person as that homeless guy running around with, barefooted, unshaven, long hair, dirty, right? Living. That's what you think is crazy. Must have psychological issues, probably schizophrenic, right? Then you have other people that can be completely delusional and look normal, well-groomed. I mean, you don't know. So, the Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah, her husband divorced her basically over the phone for the yoga teacher. Yeah. Moving along. I mean, he was, I think, 40-something. She was now 60. It was never going to work. There's too much age difference between them. They're practically different generations, right? They're not going to appreciate the same TV shows. They're just not going to do it. And, let's face it. You're not going to get a conjugal visit in federal prison. It's just not going to happen. So he moved on. He saw the writing on the wall. And then he gets a yoga teacher. He moved on to something a little younger. That'll show you old Ghislaine. Okay. When the lawyer states he spent $30,000 at Versace and whatever he said probably wasn't enough, he's so serious. I was cracking up. Yeah, Williams, I thought it was strange that Means wanted to be involved in Lori's treatment. Yeah. Scott, should Lori Vallow's attorneys, when you going to claim insanity from a cult? Well, obviously I don't have all the access to the medical records, but Mr. Archibald, the new attorney who's death penalty qualified, I believe will probably make at arraignment or the appropriate time under Idaho law a motion of a mental deficiency that she was not guilty by reason of insanity. And frankly, the longer that she stays in the mental institution, the more likely that is going to be. Okay? If she's in fact restored, she's not going home. She's going to go spend the rest of her days in the mental institution. Yes, let's see here. So what's your solution? Allegations that cannot be proven and someone must go to jail? CG. Assuming we're talking about Mario Cuomo, no, I'm not saying if the allegations can't be proven. I just want to know what element the district attorney doesn't think that he can prove. If the woman's going to come in and say, that man over there at the defense table, former Governor Cuomo, how do you know the guy? He's my boss. He's the governor. And the victim testifies under oath, subject to cross-examination, that the guy came up and put his hand under her blouse and touched her breast. That, what other element are they missing, right? They're going to cross-examine her and say, isn't it true you filed a civil suit? You just want money. You're a greedy, money-grubbing, cheap whore, right? That's what they'll cross-examine her on. She'll say, no, I want justice, and if I get $1, that's all I want. I want him to say that he did it, and then I'm sorry, right? That's what they're going to say. Mario Cuomo can get up and say, I didn't do anything, but if I did, what can I say? It was simply me being brought up. I'm a very touchy person, but I meant no disrespect by it, which is basically what he said. If I embarrassed or caused anyone any harm, I apologize, but I'm a handsy guy. And, sometimes my hand can get stuck going up, my assistant's blouse at night. It happens. These things just happen. Mario Cuomo could certainly testify to that. My point is, if the allegations can't be proven, I just want to know why they're saying they're not. Because I'm telling you, many a case has gone forward with less credible victims in this particular case than in the Mario Cuomo case. And so I'm just curious as to why they think they can't prove the case. It's literally a word between the governor and her. He says she's credible, cooperative, and very concerned by the conduct of the governor. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he should go to jail, but I'm also saying I'd like to hear the DA say exactly what he thinks couldn't be done to prove the case. Pretty straightforward. I think it would take longer to seat the jury than it would to present the evidence. It's a 2-witness case, right? Her, maybe a police officer, the defense, maybe call somebody. Maybe there's something out there that, she said she was going to, use this to get rich or something along those lines. And if that's out there, then I would say, okay, I agree with you, Mr. Prosecutor. But I think the public, at least the citizens in New York, have a right to know what the evidence is that they think defeats that case from going forward. I just don't get it. Yes, Jen Lowe, good call. Do a background search, crimetalksearch.com. I'm telling you, everybody should have access to that background subscription search so that you can actually do a background search on literally just about anybody here in the United States. Well, anybody. And you're going to get all kinds of information. I'm telling you, there's something about everybody that they have a secret they're not telling you. You can usually find it out through a background search. Go to crimetalksearch.com, and remember, you can cancel at any time. Alley Cat Tales, interesting to hear your thoughts on Governor Polis from Capitol Hill in Denver. Yes. So Alley Cat, yeah. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I say this, because I think it needs some explanation. I never met Governor Polis at all. And then I went to an event. And when he said he was announcing to be governor, I'm like, no way. No way. Like, this guy is so far, he's more of a libertarian Democrat than I'd say Democrat. Little known fact that I didn't know until I started talking with him. Art Laffer, the guy, the Laffer curve, under Reagan, the economics trickle down theory that if people have more money to spend, you actually increase tax revenue because they spend more. He's apparently a close family friend with the Polis family, going back to when he was a kid, and sits on all his company boards, stuff like that. Trusts him to the nth degree. Polis actually wanted legislation to go forward to get rid of the income tax, state income tax in Colorado, to make us more competitive. Who supports that? Everybody loves less taxes. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, fine. This guy, he's not going to get a chance. But he shows up at this event, and it's kind of let's just say it's a pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of oil and gas guys that go to this event. And, I'm just a little criminal defense attorney. But, there's pretty big business people, et cetera, there. And, I'm sitting there, going to have our meal and cigar dinner, and the good governor is there, or soon-to-be governor is there. And he comes up and talks to me, and I'm just a little old nobody. Whatever. I can't do anything for him. He can't do anything for me. He's got more money than, I think he's worth, $500-700 million or something. He's made a lot of money. Really smart guy. So I'm sitting there talking to him, and he starts talking, what do you do? I'm an attorney. Starts talking about various things, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting. That's good philosophy. I kind of like that. And I got done. He probably spent 20 minutes talking to me. Wouldn't know me from Adam. And like I said, I can do nothing for the guy. He's like, here's my card. And I may still have it. He's like, look, if you need something, call me. I'm like, yeah, right. Whatever. So anyway, we have another event. And he comes back again. And once again, he's like, I think I met you before, but yeah, probably just, he's being nice. And I talked to him again. And I remember telling my friend, and let's just say my friend is not a Democrat. And I go up to him and I said, that guy's going to be the next governor of the state of Colorado. Like, he is, I mean, he just is like, I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to do what I think is right. I don't need to be bought or influenced. He, spent $25 million of his own money, dropping the hat for him. And that was it. Oh, Jill, correct me. It was Andrew Cuomo, not Mario. Sorry. Or maybe it was Mario, the governor, ex-governor. So anyway, I'm like, wow, yeah. I mean, I was literally like, this guy, he's going to win. And he won big. And I think he's probably one of the more politically savvy people here in the state of Colorado. And I've been told, I haven't double checked myself, but there's already like a Polis for governor or Polis for president, like 2024 website that he's bought, so he's eyeing it. And like I said, it's funny because all my totally liberal friends don't like him. My conservative friends don't like him, and he's just kind of there, but he kind of offends everybody, and because he does what he wants. He pisses off the liberals, and he pisses off the conservatives. So generally, he must be doing something right if everybody hates you. That's why when I do my show, I get told, oh my gosh, you're some right-wing nut job, blah, blah, blah. Then I get told, you're some left-wing liberal criminal defense attorney. What else? Like, no, this is the law. These are the facts. This is where I think it's going to turn out. Must be doing something right if I'm not my intent to offend everybody, but you'd be surprised what I've done to offend people. I mean, I have mispronounced a word, a state, a name, a day, you name it. It offends somebody, right, Frank? I'm sure I'm offending people right now. So anyway, that's my experience with the governor. And like I said, he did the 10 years. The prosecutor wanted 20. He said, nah, you guys screwed this up. You eat it. I'm going to give him 10, which I kind of like that because he did it his own way. Linda Kursky. Polis showed his plumber crack when he was getting into the helicopter, and you can't see that. Okay, I didn't see that, but hey, that can happen to any of us, all right? It happens. Let's see here. Yeah, no one even defends Scott's clients. They don't say free Scott's clients. Yeah, no one's ever, said, oh my God, that was an injustice, free my clients. Yeah, Kim Kardashian. Hell, I probably could have got you. I could get you through the California bar. Probably just about on any subject, I would imagine. Explaining it to Kim Kardashian. So let me know, Kim, and then maybe we can talk about some injustices that have taken place with my clients over the years, and see if we can't get them freed. Apparently, you've got a better phone number than the card that the governor gave me to give him a call. Yeah. Scott Dugar rhymes with hugger. Scott Duggar rhymes with hugger. That's right. That's the one. Yeah, it just, even though, Melissa, it wouldn't be YouTube if there weren't offended people crying in the comments. Yeah. Like choosing to step in dog poop instead of walking around. It's all about choice. Yeah, and I just think people need to lighten up a little bit, man. I mean, I've said this before. Nobody has a right not to be offended. You really don't. You don't have a right not to be offended. When you have free speech in a country, people are going to say things that you don't like. But that's the very purpose of the First Amendment, right? The government can't come in and shut down what you don't like, what they don't like. That's why, and I've said this before, and then I know we gotta go do our Patreon show, but I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, if you go back, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the states would not ratify the Constitution unless and until the Bill of Rights was made a part of the Constitution, right? I mean, Amendment 1 And there's people, can you believe it? There's actually people out there that says, yeah, I don't think we need a First Amendment. What the? Right? Amendment number 1, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So no state religion, and you can't prohibit people from exercising their religion, no matter what it is. Pretty good idea, right? Or abridging the freedom of speech, right? You can't prohibit free speech. It's there to protect the unpopular speech. And you're not going to abridge the press. Well, that was when the press would really actually ask questions of both sides, right? Now it just seems like a lot of them are propagandists for both sides, and nobody asks real hard-hitting questions, and they just throw a bunch of softballs. They're not going to bridge the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress or grievance, right? Peacefully assemble. You can go out and protest, march all you want. You can, whether it's a group of 2 or 2 million, you can do that. Now, you start destroying things, then you're breaking the law. And the government, you have a right to petition the government, right? Right to go to your congressman saying, hey, you suck. You need to do this. This is what the law should be. You can't prohibit people from doing that. The Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Shall is mandatory. The third, haven't used this one a whole lot, but no soldier shall, in the time of peace, be quartered in any horse without the consent of the owner, nor in the time of war, but in a manner prescribed by law. Now, I was thinking about this. No one ever sees this, but there was this case. I think it was on Netflix, and it was called Turn. I think like Turncoat, like Turn, and it was basically about the spies during the American Revolution, and it was interesting because you think, well, God, the Third Amendment, I mean, how often do they quarter troops? Apparently, historically, quite a bit. The British would come in and say, oh, you're going to house 2 officers in your house. The commander in that particular case had his stable for his horses in the church, so the people could no longer practice their religion in their church. It was a thing at the time, right? And the Fourth Amendment, this is huge, and people don't get it. Fourth, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly described in the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. Because remember, back then the old king and soldiers can come up and say, we're going to search your house. We're not really sure what we're looking for, but we'll know it when we see it. We think you are committing seditious acts. We'll know it when we see it. That's why they said you have to know what you're looking for. You can't just go in. A general warrant is illegal, right? Can't search a person. Fifth, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in a case arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, right? Double jeopardy clause, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, right, against self-incrimination, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. There's the due process clause, ladies and gentlemen. They can't take your life, liberty, or property unless you are given due process. Know what you're being charged with. Know what they want to take away. What are the consequences? Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. The takings clause. The government's going to say we're going to take your property to put in a highway. They have to pay you for it. They can't just take it. All things the king used to do. The Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature of the cause and accusation, to be confronted with witnesses against him, to have compulsory process, be able to subpoena people for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his self-defense. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. The founding fathers. Why? Because tyrannical kings, this is what they did. Oh, we're going to have a criminal prosecution. We'll throw you in jail. We'll get around to it when we can. Couple years ought to be good. Oh, you committed an offense in, New York at the time. We're going to take you back to England and try you. Yeah, you won't be able to have access to any witnesses. Don't worry about it. The king says that's fair, right? All these fundamental principles of constitutional law are in the Bill of Rights, ladies and gentlemen. Seventh Amendment, a suit at common law where the value and controversy shall exceed $20. The right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rule of the common law. Eighth Amendment, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. Once again, these people, pretty darn smart. Ninth Amendment, the enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Interesting. The 10th Amendment, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, right, nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people, right? The dormant 10th Amendment. That's right. The 10th Amendment, ladies and gentlemen. Anything not specifically delegated to the United States in the Constitution is reserved for the states to decide. Federalism, ladies and gentlemen, federalism. We are a constitutional republic. We are not a democracy. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen. Constitutional republic, federalism. Small government, federal government, bigger state governments. That's where the authority is. That's where it should take place. So when I met the lovely Miss Kristen, she had me at federalism. I'm just saying. Aficionado. Aficionado. The definition of aficionado is somebody that has great interest or expertise in a particular area or subject matter. Many of our subscribers, viewers, love true crime. They know the legal system, the process, how cases work, great interest in them. That's why we call them aficionados. Melissa, I love offensive people. Let's see here. I know we've gone a little long, but let's see. Let's see here. All right. Well, we've gone quite a bit. It's already 7:30. Can you believe how quickly that goes by? Can't believe. Talked an hour and a half, and we've had 754 people. I think maybe even more. 759. It looks like was the high tonight. Not as good as the other night. We had 3,000. But the fact that greatly appreciate all those sticking around. So, all right, we're going to do our Patreon show. If you'd like to join us, you can join for a Patreon member. I think as little as $5, and then you get the secret phone number. You can call and we can have a conversation. We'll stay as long as people are calling in, or we have something to talk about. All right. And some people say, why do you have to be a Patreon? Well, we give it to people to support the channel. YouTube likes to demonetize anything we say. It's funny. All the words they say we shouldn't use is everything that we use when it comes to true crime. And I assure you, there's nothing more frustrating than when getting demonetized and you think, what did we do or say wrong? And YouTube does it, and they have a tendency of, they'll monetize our videos after 2 weeks, but when you do a daily program, it's a little frustrating. So, that money goes into help to, pay expenses. We have the CrimeTalk staff, both Frank and Julie, who do lots and lots of work that you could only imagine the amount of work that they put in. And if you think video editing is easy, it's not. Okay, it's time consuming, right, Frank? It is, particularly when, I mean, I could slap anything together and throw it up, but it's not going to be of great quality. I go back and look at some of my earlier videos and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I can't believe we even put those up. So they're much better quality, and that's because of people like Frank, and Julie helps keep everything running as well. So yeah, it's someone's got a screen name of Atlas Shrugged. I like that. Who is John Galt? Right? There it is. There it is. Read it. Read it. Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. It'll change your life. Just saying. All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Thank you for taking the time to watch. We appreciate it. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you got something out of it. And for all our Patreon members, we'll see you there in just a few minutes. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.